Hi, I'm Frédéric Tcheng. I'm the director of Dior I, a documentary film about Raf Simons' first collection for Dior um, in 2012. And the film is premiering at the Sydney Film Festival.
Fantastic. Well, welcome to the Sydney Film Festival. What does it mean to be to have your Australian premiere here?
It's pretty great. It's my first time in Australia. It's my second time in Australia, but the first time was in '95 or something like that, and I was 15 or 17, something like that, and I was in Perth for a language exchange program. So now I'm coming back with the film, so it's exciting.
All comes full circle.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the film. And firstly, congratulations on it.
Thank you.
I haven't gotten to finish watching yet, but I got halfway through it. And firstly, the cinematography, beautifully shot. Can you talk about who you worked with, who was your DP and all that?
Yeah, my DP's name is Gilles Picard. He's a French cinematographer, and we collaborated. We would switch. I would do the camera sometimes, and then he would do the camera. We would alternate, and because I really I like being behind the camera. I think that's part of my training in a way, and it's also part of the way that I can feel the action and I can feel the movie, and it's a little bit like using a pencil to draw. It's my tool. It's how I sort of decide what story I'm gonna film, what emotions I'm gonna be drawn to.
Especially with a documentary, a little different than a storyboarded, action adventure.
Yeah, yeah. But it was great to have Gilles because he's very experienced, and I had to work very quickly because Dior announced Raf's coming to Dior, like very late in the process, and we wanted to be there for the first few days when he arrived at the House of Dior, and so I had to gather a crew in a very short time, and my producer Guillaume de Roquemorel and Juliette de Lambourg. Juliette knew Gilles Picard because it's her boyfriend. They have a baby together now that they actually conceived during the making of the film. And
that's not in the film, is it?
No, it's not in the film. But there were 3 babies made during the filming of the film. Actually, my 3 producers each had a baby.
There you go.
And Juliette had a baby with my cinematographer. I mean, they've been together for a long time.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was a very it was nice for me because it was a very family. The crew felt like a family. I was coming back to Paris after working in the US for a very, very long time, and I was really lucky to find people that really were able to respond very quickly, and it was just like a family atmosphere.
So, at what point did you decide to tell this story?
Well, I had the previous film that I worked on was called Diana Vreeland, The Eye Has to Travel. I was the co-director of that with Lisa Imordino Vreeland and BJ Perlmutt. And when we finished Diana Vreeland, The Eye Has to Travel, we showed it in Paris to a select audience of fashion VIPs in a way. And Olivier Bialobos of Dior was one of the guests, and we started talking that night. And I was always curious because Dior was already looking for a designer, and I a lot of people were talking, speculating, like who is it going to be, and Raf Simons was sort of the favorite candidate, and a lot of people were talking about him going to Dior, and I was always fascinated with the possibility of someone so modern going to a house that's so steeped in tradition. And I saw the possibility of a story. I was like, well, this is the newcomer, the new blood sort of coming to an old house, and this is the beginning of a story. And I always liked his approach. His sort of creative process is really interesting and very different from a lot of other designers. It's very collaborative. It's very inspired by art or architecture. he doesn't really have the same sort of background that the other designers have. He's an industrial designer by training, and I always thought he was someone that I would want to know more about. His approach seemed to me more like that of a painter or an artist, a contemporary artist. And so I asked Olivier, you know, like when is it going to be announced? What's gonna happen with Dior? And we kept this conversation going on, and I told him I would be really interested in documenting the arrival of the new designer if it was Raf Simons. And then when it actually was Raf Simons, you know, I just called Olivier, you know, like, what should I do? Like, should I jump on the plane? And he was like, well, Raf is very camera shy, so he's not 100% on board yet, and we have to talk to him. And so when I came to Paris, when you actually see him first on screen in the movie, that's when I first see him, because I hadn't had time to have a meeting. So it's very interesting, because you know, I first meet him through the lens of the camera, and then we had conversations after. And in the conversations, he was very reluctant, and he told me that he didn't want to become sort of a public figure, and he didn't want to be a star that people look up to in a different way. He wanted to stay normal, so he was like, well, let's give it a week and let's try it for a week. And I was like, okay, well, we shot for a week. We got some key scenes, but then at the end, I was packing my bags and I was just leaving the building, and and I was like, well, I guess that's over. I'm not sure how Raf feels. Maybe this is over. And he saw me leaving, and he was like, Fred, where are you going? We're gonna go to the archives. You should come with us. And that's when I knew that something had changed, and that maybe he had come to, I think once he knew me personally, and we talked, and I explained to him my process and my intentions, and he could feel that I was not there to really to bother him and disturb his creative process. I think he was accepting of the crew. For him, it was kind of like an all or nothing type of thing.
That must have been a gratifying moment then, knowing that you've done something that had gotten through to him.
Yeah. He's very he can be very shy, as you see in the film, or you know, he doesn't want to reveal too much too early. But once you're in the circle, he's a very warm person, and that's really what struck me.
What do you hope people take away from the film?
Well, I hope people realize the work that goes behind these beautiful dresses, because so, you know, when you see the pictures in the magazines or the images on TV, you see usually the celebrities wearing them. You see the people in the front row. You see maybe sometimes the designer explaining the designs, but you never get to see the whole team behind the curtain. And I was interested in the collaborative aspect of fashion, and showing that, you know, there were people involved in making the shoes, in making the embroidery, and making you know, the seamstresses who saw by hand like everything, and those people they each put a little bit of themselves into the design. That's what was really interesting to me. It's that, you know, we always say it's Raf Simons' designs, but it's everyone's designs really. It's the seamstresses who, you know, who first does the interprets or gives an interpretation of the sketch, and so I was interested in showing the people who usually don't get credited.
Fantastic. Well, I hope everything goes well here at the Sydney Film Festival for you. And where does it head to next? Is there an itinerary for the screenings around the world?
Yeah, we're going back to the US, to Washington D.C. It's going to be pretty exciting. They're going to show the film at the National Portrait Gallery, and then Provincetown and Outfest, a bunch of festivals, and then Jerusalem in July, and then in the fall it's probably going to be released. So it's exciting.
Exciting time. Well,
Yes.
congratulations, and thank you very much for taking time to talk to us today.
Thank you very much.